Hey, my name is Santorin from TSM, and this is my basic guide to Kha'Zix. So, one thing about Kha'Zix is that his jungle clear is really bad. Back in Season 4, Kha'Zix was one of the most contested champions, mainly because the jungle was really easy to clear, but since Season 5, the jungle has been way harder to clear, and therefore Kha'Zix is worse as a champion. Because he just got a small buff with his W, where he gets more health back when he hits his W, he is alright in the jungle, but he most likely has to back after his first 3 camps, and therefore I only give him 6 out of 10 because I don't think after his first clear he can gank. And for ganking, I give him 7 out of 10 because he has a lot of burst as Kha'Zix, and you don't really have skills to shot that you have to rely on, therefore he's really easy to gank with. But the only thing about Kha'Zix ganks is that he has no CC, so sometimes it can be really hard and difficult to gank. And so he only give him 5 out of 10 because I feel like it's a really high mechanical champion, but he doesn't have enough payoff as being a high mechanical jungler because there's a lot of stuff that can kill Kha'Zix instantly because it's really squishy, and you have to dive into that backline to kill people. And since people are playing really defensive compositions where you have like Janna or you have Asir, then Kha'Zix have a really hard time diving into the backline without getting pushed out or killed. And also, most people are playing more dive heavy compositions also where they have a lot of CC or a lot of burst, and therefore Kha'Zix is also a worse champion. So in Kha'Zix, you mainly want to gank either OX in the lanes or lanes who are low health or people who are just playing against. Like if you have a lot of stun on your team, so let's say mid lane you have, let's say LeBlanc mid lane and you are playing Kha'Zix, then it's really easy for you to gank because you have a lot of CC already, a lot of burst. And how you want to gank the lane is, it really depends if the lane is pushing towards you or not. If it's pushed towards you and he's in an OX in a position, you can always come from behind, and then you don't have to, you can start off with just Wing him, then running up and basic attack curing him and just kill him there. And when he flashes, you just E after him. But if he's in a more passive position where LeBlanc will start off with a W and then chain him, then you will have to E on him as the first thing you do and then follow with WQ basic attack. If you can save your E, you should always save it, but if you can't, you should obviously use it, because if you can save your E when you gank, then the second he flashes, you can always go after him without flashing towards him. In team fights as Kha'Zix, that's obviously around after level 11, so you'll have your both evolve Q and E, and therefore in teamfights you want to look to kill the squishies, but you also want to be sure that you don't die, so you want to kite around, and if you see an opportunity you should jump in, kill the target and jump out again. You always want to make sure they can get the reset, because if you can't get the reset then you might be in a position where you'll just die. As Kha'Zix is a really bad clear, and therefore counter jungling is not the best thing Kha'Zix can do, and therefore I wouldn't advise you to do that, but that's one thing you can do as Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix is a champion that can do a lot of burst, and therefore you can still look for the enemy in the jungle, you can still put wards in the jungle, and if you see he's slow at some place, you can always go assassinate him. Kha'Zix works really well with dive champions such as Hecarim, Annie, or whatever champion that can dive in, because you want to have champions that can do a lot of damage instantly, so Kha'Zix can jump in and get resets, and therefore you'll probably win the team fight. So one tip for Kha'Zix is that you want to save your leap till they flash in all situations where you can. If there comes a situation where you can save it, then it's so efficient because the leap range is about the same range as flash, so you can keep continuously chasing the enemy. So on Kha'Zix you want to do the same as most other champions. You want to start on Gromp because you can get a leash from your jungler, and after Gromp you do blue, and after blue you do red. And because Kha'Zix has a really hard time clearing early, sometimes you might not even be able to do anything after those 3 camps. It really depends on how hard of a leash you get. So either you have to back off because you're too low, or you can still go and take the skull, and if you're like half health you can probably still get either bot or mid, but in most case scenarios you'll have to back. For purple side clearing, it's the exact same thing as blue side. So on Kha'Zix it's like 80 queens and 80 reds because you want as much attack damage as possible. Armor yellows because he has a really hard time clearing, so you really need that armor to take less damage in the jungle. And for blues you either take magic resist or cooldown reduction. It really depends on their composition. If they have a full 80 composition, then taking cooldown reduction is really good in Kha'Zix. But if they have 1 or 2 magic damage threats, then you will always take magic resist. On Masters do 2190 because you want to have as much early aggression as possible, because Kha'Zix is one of those champions that's scales really well, and he has some really strong ganks. So you really want to use that to your advantage. Also, if you find enemy jungler somewhere, you can probably 1v1 him at level 6 because you have so much 1v1 potential. So in Kha'Zix, you want to start with Q to get as much damage as possible. Then you take W so you can heal back up while taking jungle camps and also for damage. And then you take E. You basically take E just for the ganking pressure, and also because if they find you and you're really low, you can always jump away. And then you max Q for the most damage, you max W second and E third. And since Kha'Zix has his ultimate evolving stuff, then you also want to, first time you press ultimate at level 6, you also want to evolve your Q, and then you want to evolve your E, and then you want to evolve your W. You want to evolve your Q first to get as much damage as possible when you gank. You first want to evolve E at level 11 because that's the spell that mainly goes into team fighting, where you want to jump in, kill a target, jump out again. And you want to take W at 16 because the ultimate, if you evolve your ultimate at level 16, it doesn't do that much, whereas your W will slow them down. It will also get vision on them, and it'll also be way easier to hit your W. On Kha'Zix, you do Trailblazer 80 enchantment because you do Trailblazer mainly just because his clearing is really bad, so you want to help him as much as possible. And then after that, you do Boots just to get your movement speed, and then you want to do Hexdrinker. As long as they have 1 AP threat or more, then I think Hexdrinker is a really, really strong item on Kha'Zix because it gives him defensive stats while still getting offensive stats. And after that, you do Last Whisper because at this point in the game, they'll probably have armor, and therefore having Last Whisper is really efficient. And after Last Whisper, you're still really squishy, and therefore Black Cleaver is a really strong item. And again, the same thing goes as Hexdrinker, where it's a really strong item mainly because you both get offensive and defensive stats. And after Black Cleaver, you also want to get another defensive item because you already have enough damage as Kha'Zix to do the damage you need, and therefore you would most likely do randoms if they have a lot of armor, like if they have a lot of attack damage, and if they have more like magic damage, then you should get a Banshees or GA. It really depends. The GA is something that really depends on if you think you're gonna die in the team fight instantly, or you actually think you can cat around with Banshees or Rainduins. Thanks for watching this guide. Make sure to check out the rest on lolclass.com.